Hi, boys and girls. I have another Arthur book to share with you. When I was a kid, about your age, Arthur used to be one of my favorite TV shows and books. This one's called Arthur Writes a Story, and I hope that it'll give you some ideas for your Daily 5 writing. What kind of interesting things have you been writing about during Daily 5? Let's read. Arthur Writes a Story. There's that title page. Arthur's teacher, Mr. Ratburn, explained the homework. What should the story be about? Arthur asked. Anything, Mr. Ratburn said. Write about something that's important to you. Here's the assignment. Write a story. Have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Use details. Be creative. That's just what you do. Arthur started his story the minute he got home. He knew exactly what he wanted to write about. It says, How I Got My Puppy Pal. Oh, we read that one. I always wanted a dog, but first I had to prove I was responsible. So I started Arthur's pet business. My mom made me keep all the animals in the basement. It was a lot of work, but it was fun until I thought I lost Perky. But then I found her, and she had 3 puppies. And I got to keep one of them. That's how I got my dog, Pal. The end. Arthur read a story to his sister, D.W. That's a boring story, D.W. said. Does it have to be real life? Because your life is so dull. Dull means boring. I don't want to write a boring story, said Arthur. If it were me, D.W. suggested, I'd make the story about getting an elephant. Oh, that's silly. The next day, Arthur read his new story to Buster. Did you like the part about the elephant puppies, he asked. It's okay, I guess, said Buster. I'm writing a cool story about outer space. Maybe my story should take place on the moon, thought Arthur. Look at that. That's crazy. On Wednesday, Arthur read his newest story to the Brain. Scientifically speaking, elephants would weigh less on the moon, but wouldn't float that high, said Brain. So you don't like it? Asked Arthur. A good story should be well researched, said Brain, like mine. If I had a pet stegosaurus in the Jurassic period. Oh, sounds very smart. Arthur hurried to the library. What are all these books for? Asked his friend Francine. Research, said Arthur. I'm writing about my pet 5-toed mammal of the genus Lakoda. You're what? Asked Francine. Loxodonta. You're what? Asked Francine. My elephant, Arthur explained. Oh, said Francine, I'm putting jokes in my story. All through dinner, Arthur worried about his story. Please pass the corn, asked Father. Corn! That's it, said Arthur. Purple corn and blue elephants on the planet Schmoffent. Now that's funny. Arthur is acting weirder than usual, said his sister D.W. On Thursday, everyone at the Sugar Bowl was talking about their stories. Last year, a kid wrote a country western song for her story, said his friend Prunella. And she got an A+. How did you know? Asked Arthur. That kid was me, explained Prunella. Mr. Ratburn said I should send it to the record company. It was that good. Wow, said Arthur. That night, Arthur's imagination went wild. He decided to turn his story into a song. He even made up a dance to go with it. Oh my goodness, that looks silly. Later, he tried it out on his family. Now this little boy can come home and enjoy his own personal striped elephant, and you will see how happy he will be here on planet Schmelephant. Well, said Arthur, what do you think? Look at their faces. Do you think they're enjoying that? Mother and Father smiled. It's nice, said Grandma Thora, but a little confusing. Too bad you can't dance, said D.W. What am I going to do now, said Arthur. My story's due tomorrow. That night, Arthur didn't sleep very well. The next day, Arthur worried until Mr. Ratburn finally called on him. When Arthur's song and dance was over, the class was so quiet it was almost spooky. Binky raised his hand. Did that really happen? Sort of, said Arthur. It started as a story of how I got my dog. I'd like to hear that story, said Mr. Ratburn. The title was How I Got My Puppy Pal, said Arthur. Arthur told how proud he was of his pet business and how scared he was when Perky disappeared, and how he was happy to find her under his bed, and how surprised he was to see her 3 puppies. And the best part is, said Arthur, I got to keep one. Buster said, I like that story better than your other one. Great story, said Binky. I think Arthur's story was the best, said Francine. Good work, said Mr. Ratburn. Of course I expect you to write it all down by Monday. Then Mr. Ratburn gave Arthur a gold sticker. Oh, and one more thing, he said. Leave out the dancing. That was a very silly story. I hope it gave you some ideas of things that you could write about in your journal. Goodbye, first grade.